Welcome back. And if you're here after seeing the other tutorial, we're doing the same thing. We're going to stain the subfloor. The last time it was the guest bedroom, and we made that Thai Asian steampunk. And this one, it will be the bedroom, and it's going to be Asian steampunk again, this time with a dragon and a phoenix in the middle of the room. Okay, first things first, just like we did in the other bedroom, you're going to want to pick a design to go around the room. Now you can do it how I did a design around the room and then a main focus in the middle of the room, or you can literally do whatever you want, whatever floats your boat. Okay, get your supplies together, and I'm going to go ahead and make a stencil like I did the last time using cardboard and this utility knife. And then I'm going to use just a regular pencil in this room and go around and trace my stencils to create the design around the room. And in this case, I can use a regular pencil because the color I'm using is almost black, so it'll cover up any pencil marks that you can see. Once you get the entire room sketched out, you're ready for stain. I got this again at the local hardware store like I did in my last video. I just went down there, picked a color that I liked. They used their scanner, tried to mix a color that was similar to that, and again, I told them to leave out the white. I don't know if that's doing anything, but the color turns out the way I want. So, just FYI. Alright, you're going to want to open up your stain, and what I found out in the last room was it's very important to mix your stain thoroughly because the lighter stuff obviously floats to the top, so your color can be different. You also want to, once you have it in your tray, mix it often because again it can settle down and your color at the top will be lighter than your color at the bottom. So when you stick your brush in, you're going to be painting a lighter color unless you push your brush all the way down to the bottom and make sure you really scrape that bottom to get a darker color. So to save you from doing that every time and to keep your color consistent, you just want to mix it very thoroughly, make sure the color looks the same throughout, and then you're ready to go. At this point you'll see that I still have one of those clear tray inserts. They're really handy. You don't have to clean your tray every time, and sometimes you can't even clean your tray. So you might as well just get a clear insert. Later on in the video you'll see that I'm using poor man's insert because I did run out of those plastic things. And I ended up just using a normal kitchen trash bag. Also, I'm very, very messy, so I've spilled this all over the floor. Good news is you can get it up with just a little bit of 409. So don't panic. I've made tons of messes and it's fixable. Because I am so messy, I always keep a roll of paper towels handy. A good thing to have. See, you can clean up everything. You can clean your bucket. You can clean the floor with the 409. Awesome. And yes, I do own a lid opener. I just couldn't find it at the moment, so I did have to settle for those needle nose pliers. Here are some of the tools in my arsenal. I usually make sure I have a few different size brushes just in case, because you never know what you're going to need when you start painting. I usually end up just using about 3 of these brushes, the very largest brush, the middle sized brush, and then the kind of square shaped brush, because you can literally do anything with a square shaped brush. You can make a nice straight line, you can make a straight line that goes thin just by twisting your brush. You can do a lot with that one brush. I usually end up starting the staining process in the closet, so if there's any mistakes made, they're easily hidden, and I kind of get a feel for the stain I'm using and how to make it dark or light depending. So it's a good thing to start somewhere where no one can see it. So if you have a place in your room that you know is going to be underneath something, I would start there because you may make a couple mistakes. Like I said with the mixing, a couple times the color was too light and I had to remix it just to make sure that it was the same shade as the rest of the floor. And at the very end of the video you'll see that that was still an issue no matter how many times I mixed it, so just be very, very vigilant with that. It worked out for me because the closet ended up being a different color than the main floor, but I ended up liking it a lot. And now here I am in the closet painting. As you can see, I'm using that small square brush that I spoke of earlier, and it'll make those thick lines at the top like that, or I can turn it, it'll make the thinner lines. And I'm also going to use it to block out all of my shapes so that when I go to fill it in, I can fill it in with a bigger brush and not worry about painting over any of the things I worked so hard to paint on there. Like I said, I ended up using only 2 or 3 brushes, even though I had a lot more. The square brushes are just pretty much the best for everything. They're easy to clean. They turn and twist any way you need them to, and then they can make straight, clean lines, which is really important. As you can see, the stain looks really dark here, almost black. But as you'll see as I move back from it, even though it looks that dark, it's actually going to end up lighter than the rest of the floor. See right there, it looks pretty dark, but the stain can always go darker. Just remember that. Once I finished the closet, it was on to the main floor. I started on the outer edge just like I did in the other room, and this was probably the hardest part. If you're going to pick a stencil to do, you may want to pick something bigger than this, because I had to do so many of these and it's so tiny, it took forever. So plan ahead. Once I finished staining the outer edge, I took that time to go back and just erase all of those pencil marks that you could still see that weren't covered up with the stain. And then I just ran a vacuum over the floor and picked up all those little eraser pieces so that as I continued to stain, they wouldn't be an issue. I sketched out the centerpiece when I sketched out the outer edge and the closet pieces. I decided to choose a dragon, of course, because I love dragons, and then a phoenix. So I sketched those on the floor with the pencil, and then just like I did in the closet and in the tie room, I went back and I blocked out the outer edges of the things I sketched in the middle so that when I go in to fill in at the very end, I won't mess up what I've made. And then after I blocked out the edges, I went in and did all the details on them, made the feathers obvious, made sure the fire looked like fire, went ahead and added all the scales to the dragon, which took forever. Remember, those teeny tiny little pieces take forever, especially when there's hundreds of them. But it ends up looking really nice, and it's definitely worth the effort you went through to get that done. Next up, fill it all in. You can use a roller, which I ended up using on my next floor, but on this one I just ended up using that small brush you see in the tray, only because I wanted to keep the color consistent, and I know from doing the tie room that I could do that with that small brush by just making crisscross motions when I painted the floor. It also kept me from rolling over anything I didn't want to roll over, especially since those borders and blocking I made on the centerpieces were only about 1 inch thick. If I wanted to roll it on, I probably would have made those a little bit thicker so that I wouldn't have to get that close to the centerpieces. If you're still with me, you've reached the last and final step, and that is to apply the epoxy. And again, I use Valspar Premium Clear Coating, stronger adhesion, and that is for garage floors, but it seems to work fine on the inside. No complaints, it's held up. Same way we did the tie room, you're going to start with a 2-inch border around everything that you can't get a roller around, and it says all this on the Valspar box inside the directions, or inside the box on the directions. And then you just roll on the rest. And this time, instead of just doing the same number of coats on everything, I went ahead and all of the parts that were negative space, I put 2 extra coats on just to see if that would keep it from looking more dull than the rest of the floor. Because again, since there's no stain on it, it just absorbs all of that epoxy you put on. And obviously my cat decided to walk across it, but it was okay because it was just the first layer and I was able to just go over that, his little footprints, and they disappeared. And here's that poor man's paint tray I was talking about, my little trash bag. As you can see, the floor is drying. I have all the epoxy on, and you can still see where it's white in some places where the epoxy is still not completely dry. But once it is, I can already tell it's going to look pretty awesome. And we're done. That epoxy really brings out the rich golden tones of the floor, and they really set off that black-ish stain. As you can see, the closet is a little lighter, as I mentioned before, but it actually works out, especially if I end up knocking down that wall. It'll make a nice transition between my bedroom and the tie room.